Traders, it's Miss Setfight coming to you with a new edition of Check It Out. This week, the book talks will all feature novels in verse or verse novels. As you know from your language arts class, novels in verse are books that are narrative poems that are the length of a novel that include the same types of characterization and plot development as a typical novel, but they also are written in verse or in poetry. I have 10 great recommendations for you this week. I hope you check them out either through Book Hub or stop in the library and see us, and we'd be happy to help you find these and other titles. The first book I want to tell you about this week is called Jazz Owls, a novel of the Zoot Suit Riots by Margarita Engle. This book came out in 2018. It's a work of historical fiction. A zoot suit, by the way, was a particular style of clothing in the 30s and 40s that was popular among Mexican American and African American men in major U.S. cities. It was a suit that had large shoulders, wide pant legs that were closed at the ankle that permitted dancing, and these were very popular and fashionable at the time. Unfortunately, in Los Angeles in the summer of 1943, men wearing these suits became the target of white soldiers who were on leave during World War II. Conflict developed between those soldiers and residents of the city and sparked a series of riots. This novel tells you more about this period of history, which I personally don't know very much about. I'm planning to read this book to find out more. Highly recommended, well reviewed for those of you who like verse novels and historical fiction. This next book, Listen Slowly, is by Tang Ha Lai. It came out in 2015. It's sharply funny and poignant. It's a book about a 12-year-old girl named Mai who reluctantly travels with her family to her parents' homeland of Vietnam. She learns more about her extended family and what happened to her grandfather during the Vietnam War. This is a beautifully written book. She has another book, the same author has a book called Inside Out and Back Again that has been very popular as well, beautifully written. This third book is another beautifully written verse novel that came out in 2014 by Jacqueline Woodson. It's called Brown Girl Dreaming. This book was a National Book Award winner, and it details Woodson's life growing up as a child both in the North and in the South during the 60s and 70s, the remnants of the Jim Crow era and what that meant for her African American family. Woodson also grew up as a Jehovah's Witness, so in addition to talking about racial disparity, she talks about some of the discrimination she faced based on her family's religion. This is a beautifully written book by a wonderful author. Highly recommend this one as well. If you're familiar with the story of Bethany Hamilton, the surfer who lost her arm and continued to have an amazing career, this book, Shark Girl by Kelly Bingham, is a fictionalized account of a similar experience. This came out in 2007, and it's about a 15-year-old girl named Jana who loses her arm in a shark attack. Jana really struggles after losing her arm to identify what it means to be a whole person. And certainly she feels the loss of her limb. She feels how it causes people to see her and treat her differently, but she does not feel different in her personality or her experiences. And so it really causes a lot of self-reflection and reflection with her friends and family. Now I'm cheating a little bit because I've talked about The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo in another video this year so far, but this book's so good I have to recommend it again. This came out in 2018. It's a beautifully written verse novel. The author is a slam poet, and so you see the influence of that experience in this book. This was a National Book Award winner. It won the Prince Award, among other awards. And it's about a teenage girl named Xiomara whose desire to write and perform poetry is very much at odds with her mother's strict rules. And so you see that conflict play out. You see the fire and strength of her personality and her writing. Wonderful book. Highly recommend it. Another wonderful verse novel writer is Kwame Alexander, and Solo is part of his collection of terrific verse novels. This was co-written, by the way, with Mary Rand Hess. Came out in 2017. The main character, Blade, has a father who is a washed-up rock star who's addicted to drugs. Blade understands his father's history. He worries that it will cause him to lose his girlfriend, whom he adores. There's also the revelation of a big family secret that he worries will destroy his family and his friendships and community forever. This is a terrific book by a wonderful writer. I personally love this book, Home of the Brave by Catherine Applegate. This is a little bit older. It came out in 2007. This is the author of the one and only Ivan, by the way, if you've read that book or seen the recent movie on Disney+. This book is about a boy named Keck, who is an African refugee who is transferred to snowy Minnesota. He is without his mother and worries about her safety. He's lost several of his family members in conflict in Africa. He's lived in refugee camps. This is really a sensitively written story of an immigrant's journey from hardship to hope, and I highly recommend this book. Really, any book by Katherine Applegate is fantastic. This is a brand new verse novel. It just came out a couple of months ago. It's by the wonderful Anne E. Berg. It's called Flooded: Requiem for Johnstown, and it focuses on a real-life tragedy that occurred in 1889 in Johnston, Pennsylvania. The citizens there were warned for a long time that the dam was in poor shape. Many people disregarded those warnings, and a deadly tragedy occurred when the dam broke and plunged the entire city into chaos. This book features the voices of 6 children based on real accounts of what happened, who were involved in this tragedy, who were victims of this tragedy, and it's just a really wonderfully written account of what a child's experience would have been like during this real historical event. I love K.A. Holt's book Rhyme Schemer. K.A. Holt won the Golden Sower Award in 2018 for her book House Arrest. This is actually one of my favorite books of hers. It came out in 2014. It's about Kevin, who has a really bad attitude. He rubs his teachers and classmates the wrong way. He has a unique way of getting under people's skin, and that's with poetry. He gets the tables turned, though, and we get to see what happens when he finds himself getting picked on. Okay, last book is The Crossover. I'm cheating. I'm including 2 books by Kwame Alexander just because he's such a popular verse novelist. This one came out in 2014. It's about twin basketball players named Jordan and Josh. These 2 guys are both stars on the court, but Josh is a star off the court as well, and that is he's a fantastic poet. He tells about his family's experiences in verse, and this is a fantastically written, high-energy book that a lot of students have really enjoyed. Okay, that's it for this week. Let us know if you want any of these books. We'll deliver them to Spark if you fill out a book hub form or pop into the library and we'll get them checked out to you. Thanks. See you soon.